Welcome or welcome back to my corner of the internet. My name is Lowry if you are new here, and today we are talking about warmer weather knitting patterns. Not a usual podcast today. I thought I'd talk about kind of my spring/summer knitting plans. I am aware that it is already spring. As I have said, I think in every video thus far, I live in the northeast of England. We don't have a huge amount of warmer weather. We don't really get warmer weather kind of consistently throughout the spring-summer period. So it kind of made sense to me to just lump those two seasons together and kind of create a warmer weather knitting plans or knitting inspiration video. I have got about 10 plans or patterns, ideas, I guess, that I have had my eye on that I would like to knit this spring/summer. Realistically, I probably won't get through all of those. 10 is a lot. I also don't tend to be a kind of type A planner, particularly when it comes to my knitting. I need to be able to be taken by the whims of my knitting fancy. And that means some of these may never see the light of day. It might be that in 3 weeks I'm not interested in some of these, and that's okay. But these are 10 patterns that I am really interested in at the moment that I would really like to knit this spring or summer. Without further ado. Oh, actually, a little bit about how I choose my warmer weather knitting patterns. There are a couple of cardigans/jumpers on here, as I said, northeast of England. They're also really useful for just kind of throwing on in an evening over dresses or skirts or kind of summery outfits. There are a few kind of longer sleeve patterns that are like blouses. I won't be knitting any of those with 2 strands of mohair. I will never knit anything, I imagine. Never say never, but I'm very sensitive to mohair, so I wouldn't be knitting something that's just mohair. But I think a lot of kind of mohair patterns can be quite easily substituted for a different kind of yarn. Obviously it creates a very different look, but I don't think that means that it can't be done. So I've got a couple of those on here. I think I've got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 patterns that are like long sleeve. And then I guess I must have 5, yes, that are short sleeved or rather sleeveless. I don't really wear short sleeve knitted garments. I don't own any hand knits, things that I've made that are kind of short sleeves, and it's not something that I would buy from a shop either. I think I just find fabric up in my armpits to be too uncomfortable, and fabric has no business being all up in my pits in the summer. So generally I go for sleeveless tops. Generally I go for kind of bra friendly tops as well. I don't like having a kind of separate work/home wardrobe. Most of the things in here, in fact they're all generally bra friendly. There is one short sleeve pattern in here, kind of sleeveless pattern, that's kind of not completely bra friendly or doesn't completely cover the straps. Bra straps, but otherwise generally I go for bra friendly sleeveless tops. And then obviously long sleeve stuff. I still get wear out of all my cardigans and sweaters and things during the warmer months. So now I will begin, and I will begin with my current width. This is the first warmer weather knitting pattern that I'm making, knitted garment that I'm making. And I think, to be honest, this is working up really quickly, so I think this might end up being a finished object by the time I do my next podcast episode. This is, let me see if I can show you properly. You don't need it that far forward. This is my Cumulus blouse by PetiteKnit. I am using the Filcolana Mercy in the colour Duckling, which I talked about last time, and I said that I was going to use it to make the blouse number 1 by My Favourite Things Knitwear, which, spoiler alert, is something that I will knit this summer, but not in this. I just had too many issues with gauge, and I was just too unsure about whether I should size. I'm kind of right in between the 2 smallest sizes, and I didn't know whether I should size up or size down, and I was well off with this gauge, and I think I was just going to have to do too much finagling, and I didn't feel confident to do that. So I went online looking at other kind of blouse patterns or kind of openish gauge jumpery patterns that would work. I'd already knitted a gauge swatch on 5mm needles, which the blouse number 1 pattern does call for, and I was so far off. And actually going up to the 5mm needle meant I was on gauge for the Cumulus blouse, which I think actually recommends a 4.5mm needle, but that might be wrong. I'm knitting the original version, so I'm knitting the V-neck version, and it's just a really basic, simple raglan. It has, I'll hold it up again, it has a lot of positive ease. You'll probably be able to see at the bottom. This is an 80cm cable, and even when I kind of stretch it out on my needles, they've got a needle stopper on the moment, little cat paw. But even when I stretch this out across the full length of the needle cable, it's still kind of bunched up, so a lot of positive ease, which I'm not mad about. That's kind of what I wanted. I did contemplate when I started this whether I would add short rows, so it's a raglan construction, really basic, straightforward construction, but there's no kind of short row shaping at the back of the neck, and I did contemplate whether I wanted to add some or not, just so it kind of sat a bit better, but I kind of decided because there was so much positive ease in this, and it's going to sit quite slouchy anyway, I think. I don't necessarily mind if it kind of lacks that shaping to help it sit nicely at the back. And I have tried it on partway through. Obviously I've not blocked it or anything yet. I have tried it on partway through, and I think it's going to be fine. I think I'm happy with it as it is. The only thing that I am slightly concerned about is this is part superwash, so the Filcolana Mercy is 50% cotton and 50% superwash merino, and I've never worked with superwash before, so I don't really know what it's going to do when I block it. Obviously I blocked my swatch and it didn't grow a huge amount, but blocking a swatch just doesn't account for the weight of a full finished garment. So that will be a surprise, an unknown, and we will cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, that is my first knitting, warmer weather knitting pattern, and I'm really enjoying this colour. As you can kind of see, I quite enjoy a pale yellow. I should mention what I'm wearing actually. Let me put this away. What I'm wearing, I am wearing my Celeste cardigan, yes, that's what it's called, by Knits for Days, and I knit this last year. We are not going to look too closely at this cardigan. This was my first attempt at spit splicing, and it went badly, and I've not done it since. I've decided it's not for me. Probably because of in part the yarn that I use to knit this. So I knit this in Double Sunday. It's one of the PetiteKnit colourways. I think it was called Banana or something like that, but I've had a look online and I can't seem to find it anymore. It looks like it's not available to buy, but it's kind of just this pale, slightly cool leaning yellow colour. And the yarn colour was a little bit adventurous for me when I bought it, but I have worn it to death since I made it. And you will see that if you can see, let's see if I can show you, any of the pilling. Can you see that? It's really pilled, which Double Sunday does. So it wasn't exactly the best choice of yarn if I didn't want it to pill. But it's so soft and it's so comfortable, and I can wear this on so many of my outfits. I get loads of wear out of this. I have depilled this sort of twice already, I think. So it really, really does pill. It is I think it's a contiguous construction, but don't quote me on that. It's one of those where you have markers for the shoulder and you increase either side of the markers for the body, and then you increase inside the markers for the arm. And it was really easy to knit. I enjoyed knitting it. It's finished with a folded hem on the sleeve and the body, and the folded hem is done with one row of purl stitches. There's actually one row of purl stitches in all the kind of at the end of the knit stitches, and that encourages the fabric to fold over. And it has these lovely ties on the front. It's not meant to tie like this, so if you can see these ties here, we'll call it a design choice. It was a mistake that I made. This I-cord is supposed to come all the way round to the end of the front piece, but when I read the instructions and it says kind of knit the I-cord until the end of the front piece, I thought it meant, for some reason, the seam, the join here, don't know why I did that, quite obviously doesn't. And if I'd taken a closer look at the test knits and the sample knit, I would know that. I would know it has to tie across here. So messed this up, decided I couldn't be bothered to undo it. I actually kind of liked it dangling like this, and just made it into a V-neck instead. So I then added one tie kind of down here, and then one here as well. I think that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, I get loads of wear out of it. It's not in the best condition. It's not my finest knitting. It was one of my early knitting projects. But, you know, the point of handmade fashion is that it is handmade, and slow fashion. So I get lots and lots of wear out of something that I've made, and that brings me joy. Okay, back to my warmer weather knits. Item number 1 on the list of long sleeve patterns that I want to knit is blouse number 1. We're not going to dwell on this for too much. I've spoken about this in my previous podcast episode. Blouse number 1 is by My Favourite Things Knitwear. It's a boat neck blouse. It's recommended to knit on 5mm needles, I believe, and the sample uses Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. The designer knitted the first sample in 2 different colourways held together, so it creates kind of a mild effect. I think I would like to knit mine just in one colour. I have been browsing the Knitting for Olive website and the kind of UK-based websites that I buy Knitting for Olive from. Shout out to Knit, who package my parcels and send them so quickly. And I think I've settled on the colour Poppy Rose. I really, really want to knit with pink this summer. I'm really feeling pinks and greens, sort of soft pinks, pale greens. That's what I'm feeling. And I went backwards and forwards over the ballerina colour and the poppy rose colour and the rhubarb juice colour, and I spent ages scrolling Instagram trying to see pictures of people either wearing or working with those yarns so I could get an idea of what they actually looked like, kind of worked up. I think I've settled on poppy rose. It's just a really gorgeous, quite true pink, I think, colour. I think it's a little more cool leaning than some of the other options, than the rhubarb juice. And the ballerina I do really want to work with, but I am slightly concerned it will just look like my flesh and then I will just look like an uncooked chicken. So we'll hold the ballerina for a different project. That's all I have to say about that one. I will knit this project this summer. Whatever it takes. I want to knit this project. I have so many ideas of how I can style this blouse, and I will be devastated if I don't get to wear any of the outfits that exist in my head this summer. The other thing that I am pretty confident I will knit this summer is an Olga sweater. Now, it's a sweater, but I think this would just be a really cute way to add some stripes to my wardrobe, and I think I could get year-round use from it, kind of throwing it over outfits in the summer or kind of incorporating it more in the winter as well. I think it would take me into fall nicely. The yarn that I've earmarked for this is, oh, I should say the pattern's by PetiteKnit. I'm just assuming everyone knows that, but I shouldn't. The Olga sweater is by PetiteKnit. It's been quite a popular pattern. There's also a cardigan version as well, which is really cute. There might even be a vest version? I don't even know. I feel like she comes out with patterns just so quickly, just constant churning of patterns. Anyway, I want to knit this with the Gepard Garn Cotton Wool 5, which I believe is marked online as a worsted weight, but having looked at the gauge for the cardigan, it's 20 stitches cardigan sweater. It's 20 stitches by 30 rows on 4mm needles, and I think, knowing my typical gauges, I think I would have to go up to a 4.5mm needle anyway to get that gauge. I've never knit with that yarn, so we'll see. I may have to do some finagling, but I really like their colour options, and I really want to knit this jumper with a kind of merino cotton mix, just to make it a little bit more lightweight and breathable, so that I can sort of throw it on if I'm going on a walk or, I don't know, to the beach in the summer, in the warmer weather. I would like to use the colours 104, which is pale blush, and 152, which is truffle. I will put those up on the screen. This is the combination I'm imagining. It's like a dark, true brown, not too warm leaning, and a pale pink. And I think that looks so cute together. And the pink just bring a bit more vibrancy into my warmer weather wardrobe, but also I think that combination will be really good for winter and autumn as well. So I think I'll get loads of wear out of it, and spring. It's quite spring-like actually, that combination. Yeah, I think I can wear it all year round, basically. And I'm pretty certain I'm going to knit that pattern as well. Next on my list is the Celestine cardigan by Verden. I believe I'm saying that right. I have only seen this designer and this pattern quite recently on social media. It came across my For You page. It's gorgeous. The cardigan is so beautiful. It's kind of a V-neck cardigan. It's quite a small, quite a fine gauge. And it has these kind of cable lace details down the edge of the cardigan on both sides that I think just elevate it that little bit without making it too fancy or too kind of detailed or kind of delicate lacework. It looks gorgeous. I think I'm going to knit this with my reclaimed Maier Garn yarn. So I've got it here. In my last podcast episode, I talked about my very first cardigan, my very first knitted garment, which was the Darling Wrap by Knitting for Olive, which was a bad choice, a first pattern, if anyone is kind of a beginner knitter out there. But also, I think the combination of yarns I used for that pattern wasn't the most sensible, because I used a Suri alpaca, and it's supposed to be quite tight fitted, kind of quite neutral ease, I think. And it just meant it was always too warm for me to kind of wear it so close, because it was so close to my skin. So I unravelled that. It took me hours. I don't have a winder or a Swift or a whatever any of that equipment is called. I have me and my dining room chairs, and a cat that likes to get involved. And it took forever, and the Suri alpaca was really clinging to the merino, and it was driving me up the wall. Couldn't save any of the Suri alpaca. I kind of knew that going into this, but I did get it back. So this is the Maier Garn in the colour Anemone. It's their merino. And I knit up this small swatch. It's not exactly 10 by 10, but it's close enough for me to work out the gauge. And I think I am exactly on gauge for this cardigan. And I do want to use this to knit a cardigan again, because all of my summer dresses, or most of my summer dresses, my midi dresses, have bits of purple in, like purple florals. So this will go really well with lots of things in my wardrobe. And I think would just be really lovely to be able to wear over the top of kind of more summery, feminine outfits. So I think this is what I'm going to use for the Celestine cardigan. I have never knitted anything from this designer before, never heard of them until the pattern came across my For You page, but it's gorgeous and I'm very excited. The last long sleeve pattern that I have on my list, realistically I probably won't get to until the autumn, so this might carry over, but it's something that I would definitely like to knit at some point this year, and that's the Daphnis cardigan by Emma's Knits. I talked about this in my last video as well. I was considering using that purple yarn for it, but I would not be on gauge. I'd have to hold it with something, I think, to go up a needle size. That, by the way, is already up a needle size from what the Celestine cardigan suggests. So I think the Celestine cardigan, the pattern calls for a 3.5mm needle, and I knit that on a 4. And it's already quite sort of drapey, so I don't think I could go up another needle size. I'd have to kind of incorporate another yarn, and I don't think I want to buy more yarn for that project. So I'm going to put the Daphnis cardigan aside and knit that in a more appropriate yarn. What that is, I don't know, but I have visions of a brown, sort of mid-toned, no, a cool-toned brown that will just go with lots of my blouses and shirts, and kind of I could just wear with a plain t-shirt underneath. It can go over my dresses, including some of my more autumn dresses that I don't necessarily get wear out of in the summer. I think that would be a really cute autumn garment, which I would like to have knit in time for autumn. But if I haven't, I'm not mad if that carries over into the next season. But that's kind of my long sleeve knitting pattern inspiration for you. I've also got a few sleeveless knitting patterns that I'd like to get around to this season. And the first one that I am pretty confident that I will knit this season is the Sabai top. I'm sure you've probably seen the Sabai top floating around social media. I've seen lots of other knitting YouTubers or kind of knitters on this app talking about knitting the Sabai top. It's by Paulastrickt. It's a really lovely pattern. It's knit in Sandnes Garn Luna, and I think I'm just going to use the suggested yarn for this one. I think I will use the light green colourway, which is number 8521, and the Sabai top again is kind of a boat neck or slash neck top. Those are really obviously catching my eye at the moment. And it's quite a basic top, I think, but there's two different versions of it. So there's one with just kind of a raw edge, I guess, and just kind of plain stockinette. And then there's one with a small amount of ribbing at the neckline, across the neckline here. And I'm going to knit the version with the ribbing along the top. And I think that in sort of a light kind of almost sagey green will look really beautiful. So that's the first pattern that I'm definitely going to knit, and when it is finally June and I am no longer on a yarn buying ban, I think that's what I'm going to purchase, the yarn to knit that pattern. I also really want to knit the Nora bow top by Penduzzu, or I think her name is Dominika. This is also someone who's new to me and something that I have seen come across my For You page, and that's how I've kind of become aware of the designer and the pattern. This top is stunning. It's so feminine, it's so unusual, or a little bit different, I guess, but it's so unusual for kind of me and my knitting at the moment, but would absolutely be something that I would get loads of wear out of. It's a really gorgeous kind of sleeveless top that I think is sort of halter depending how tight you tie it. So there's kind of a channel on the front and the back piece at the top of the neck, and a long kind of tie piece that's threaded through those, and then it's tied in a bow at the shoulder, which I think is great because it makes it adjustable. It means you could tie it a bit tighter or a bit looser depending on how you want it to fit or sit or cover your bra straps. This is probably the least bra friendly pattern on my knitting wish list, I guess, but I would still say it's pretty bra friendly, with the exception of maybe a bit of strap peeking out at the shoulder. I think it's pretty bra friendly, and if you were really intent on not having that visible, you could wear a strapless bra. It's not something I wear, but you could. I don't know what I'm going to knit this in. This is again in 2 strands of mohair, like the Cumulus blouses, and I won't be knitting it in 2 strands of mohair. I think I want to knit it in either a linen or a silk, or maybe a linen silk blend. I want to knit it in something that has drape and even maybe a little bit of shine to it, a little bit of sheen, because I think that will keep kind of the elevated look of the top and kind of the intended fit of the top. I have looked at Dererum Natura Antigone. That is 100% linen, I believe, but has a really lovely sheen or shine to it, and some really lovely colourways, and is actually available in the UK to buy. There's also the Gepard Garn Her Silk. I apologise for my pronunciation. But that is a linen silk blend, and again has quite a nice shine to it. The colourways are kind of not quite as smooth though. There's some sort of heathering in those yarns, which I imagine is just from the combination of materials and dye taking to different materials differently. So I'm not sure what yarn I'm going to knit that in, and I'm not sure what colour I want to knit that in. Maybe something kind of elegant like a powder blue, or maybe even a white. I don't know. Maybe a ballerina. Maybe I just knit it in KFO silk. Maybe I knit it in a sort of baby pink or a pale pink. Who knows? We'll see when I get to it. I think I will get to that top. But because I'm not entirely sure what I want to knit it with, that might be further down the line. We'll see. And then another sleeveless top I've had my eye on, which also isn't released. I should say that the Nora bow top hasn't been released yet, and I think as of filming, it may be released by the time that I upload this video. I think it's going to be released on the 25th of May, so if it is the 25th of May, you can get this pattern. Another top that hasn't been released yet, but I've been keeping a close eye on social media, is the Granular top by Aegyoknit. This looks to me like it's constructed with a combination of pearl and knit stitches, I think, but the majority of the top is pearl stitches, and then there are just these kind of channels or columns of single knit stitches that go down the top. And it does look like grains almost, like wheat sheaves. I don't know. I think it's really cool and quite different and quite structural, and I really like that. The recommended yarn for this top is the Her Silk by Garn. I think that's kind of the sample, what the samples are knitted in anyway. And I think that looks like quite a good suggestion. I think I would knit this in a sort of pearly grey colour. I think I haven't really got any sleeveless tops in my wardrobe, I don't think, that are a sort of cool pearly grey, and I think there's lots of room in my wardrobe for that. I could style it with loads of my midi length skirts, or I could style it with a pair of kind of cotton or flared trousers, I guess, sort of like linen trousers. Yeah, I think it would be cool. And then I've also had my eye for a little while on the Maggie vest, which is by PetiteKnit. I've talked about this again before. I knitted a self-drafted top last year, a sleeveless top, in Lamana Como in their navy colour. It's quite a rich royal navy, I would say, but it's a sort of sport DK weight 100% merino wool, and I just don't think that's the most appropriate yarn for a close fitting sleeveless summer top. So I have decided that I'm going to unravel that top and have another go at it, because there are some changes I'd like to make to the fit and things, but I'd like to do that with a more appropriate yarn. And I'm going to use the Lamana Como instead to knit a Maggie vest, which I've checked and I would be exactly on gauge for. So it's a nice fit. I think the Maggie vest is something that I'll probably knit at the end of summer / start of fall, again like the Daphnis cardigan. This is something that might get carried through depending on how much I get through, because this is something that I think I could get a lot of wear out of in the autumn, and is something that can be styled either by itself as kind of a vest top or kind of with layers underneath, I think. So it kind of has a bit more longevity in kind of how I style and wear that. But that is something that I'm going to knit this year, I think. Whether I knit it this summer or whether I start it in the autumn, we will see. And then the final pattern on my list is potentially the least likely to happen, but one of the most gorgeous, I think. It's the Ophelia tank by Starcrossed Knits, and I have seen these all over social media for quite a while now. That's kind of various patterns, the Ophelia blouse, the Ophelia top, and there's a few different versions, but I would like to knit the Ophelia tank. I believe the sample is knitted in Knitting for Olive pure silk, and I think I would do the same. I think the sample's also knitted in white, and I think that is a really gorgeous, elegant staple. So I would do similarly. I think I would knit it in white. It is, however, a fingering weight top on a 2.75mm needle, which is absurd. I don't think I even own a 2.75mm needle. I don't knit socks. It also has crochet picot borders or picot edges, and I don't crochet and I don't know how to crochet. I don't even know how to crochet a provisional cast on. So that would be a skill extender for me. But it's so gorgeous. How could I not knit it? It's beautiful. Is it realistic? We'll find out. I'm not too sure. Okay, I think that's everything that I had to share with you. Those are my 10-ish. I didn't actually count them. I think it's 10. But my 10-ish warmer weather knitting patterns. Hopefully you kind of got a bit of inspiration from that. If you have already knit any of those patterns, please let me know. Please give me any feedback you have or any tips or tricks. Any comments on my yarn choices, that would be fantastic too. Yeah, just leave it in the comments. I'd love to know what you're working on at the moment. I hope you've had some knitting with you while you've been watching this, or some sort of crafty fun. And I will hopefully see you again shortly. If you are playing Yarn Chicken this week, I hope you win. Bye.